Sweet deal. Sweet deal. Okay, this is the first ever episode of the podcast that was just given a name 5 seconds ago. Every episode, a new game.
Yeah, which we realize is immediately a promise that we have to keep every single time.
Yes, we also realized that right after we pressed record, right before we pressed record, that we need to make a new game every single episode. But we believe that with the pressure behind it and the promise of the title, that we can do it.
Yeah, no, I have the utmost confidence.
Yes, my name is Quentin Ronan. This is my brother, Zachary Ronan. We are Ronans. The only real power I think the Ronans have been given upon birth is being able to come up with new games. It's a blessing and a curse. The curse is you also can't be somewhere that doesn't have a game. So it has some pros and some cons. But we think with this power, we'll be able to do this.
Yeah, earlier this year, you and Dad were bored at a swap meet flea market type of situation and picked up a bunch of rocks from the gravel on the ground and took a table and then made like a super crazy version of checkers.
Yes, we did. We put the rocks on a grid and we called it Grid Rock.
Yeah, that's genius.
Which is why I am not normally the one that comes up with names for things, but you are.
No.
But yeah, it was pretty fun. Yeah, it was. I think boredom creates a lot of things, and restrictions create a lot of things. So I think that also will play into this show of the restriction of the time limit, like what can be created, and what we're hoping to do at the end of every episode, there being a new game, is that on our Discord, Patreon, whatever it's going to be, maybe just a link in the description for a Google Drive. Is that there'll be assets that everyone will be able to print and play themselves. So we're hoping to be able to come up with a game idea, come up with the rules, and print assets all at the same time. Maybe in future episodes, revising things, or just in our off time, not even while recording, revising things so that people can play like the version 2, version 3 of whatever game we come up with, and it'll be legit.
Yeah, I can imagine us either at the opening or the close of each episode, like also releasing patch notes, like, by the way, episode 1 got revised, that game in there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. There's these guys that I heard of a long time ago. I have one of their games. I'm pretty sure they're still making games. They make video games. They're called Sock Pop. And they have one game that went off quite a bit called Stacklands. And what they were doing is they were making like a video game. And I don't know if it was like every week or every month, but it was something crazy. It was like shorter than what you would think. And they're called Sock Pop. But anyways, they're making games. So we're kind of trying to do that, but with board games.
Yeah.
Make a new game.
Or what's the other one? Story Break is the one that I had referenced in the past for another podcast that I was on. But Story Break creates treatment for a movie every single episode, and it ends with like an elevator pitch for that movie, like a 30-second version of it. And then I think that genre has been done a lot, but I've never seen it done with board games, and we might even branch out to like apps and stuff like that, and mobile games and desktop games, because we have a little bit of experience with that in the bag. We have half of probably about 40 games right now.
Yes, we do.
So that's 20 games.
And with this podcast, we will be able to finish all of them within 40 episodes.
Or, yeah, exactly. That's actually a really good point, because if not, then it's going to turn into us having the half of another 100 games behind us.
Exactly. Maybe that should be the name of it should just be half-finished games or something.
Yeah, starting and not finishing.
We'll call it Half-Life, the game.
There we go. Oh, I got it. And there's a guy with a gravity gun.
And there's a guy with a gravity. It's perfect. Okay. With that in mind, I believe, Zachary, that you had a game that you've been working on for a while that you wanted to start this off with.
Yeah, I was really happy when you pitched the idea of the podcast to me, because I'm like, perfect. I just get to have time every single time we record to finish one of these games I've had rolling around in the back of my head. So the name of the game currently is Snowbirds, working title. But the idea behind it is originally I had developed this game to be competitive, and it was called Trapdoors. And you just have a blank, like checkerboard, chessboard kind of situation, a grid. And both of you are moving privately around the board. And it was sort of I wanted to take a game I didn't like Battleship, and find out why I didn't like it, find out why people do like it, and improve it in my own way. So the secrecy behind it, the mind games behind it is cool about Battleship. Moving around in Trapdoors, you can place a trap where you think your enemy's going to be, play these cards to figure out where they're at so you could hone in on attacks and traps and whatnot. But what it did do is it encouraged you to cheat constantly. And I was like, wow, how do you prevent that from being a problem? Well, if you worked together against the board, you wouldn't cheat, because the thing about like co-op games is they're so easy to cheat, you might as well just not play the game. So people tend to not cheat in a co-op game. And it's the satisfaction of knowing that you beat the game that drives you to play. And I think it attracts an entirely different type of crowd, a different type of gamer. And so in Snowbirds, you're two birds who got left behind for the winter, and you're trying to find each other while the snow's already falling because winter's already started. But it is in the mountains in such a condition that if you speak to each other verbally, you might cause an avalanche. So that's the twist about the game, is you got to find each other without any form of verbal communication. Now, I got a couple ideas of how this game could go. If it ends up being entirely different than what I've been envisioning, I'm happy as long as it gets like a playable version.
Interesting. Okay, so already you have the concept, which is the Snowbirds. Now, two people can't communicate, and there's kind of the secrecy to Battleship. But what's the end goal?
So I have two ideas. Once you realize you're both on the same square of the grid, sort of like Kemp, it doesn't do enough if I know I'm on the same grid as you. You have to know I'm on the same grid as you. And maybe you give some sort of signal, like maybe that's the one time you verbally communicate with each other. But if you're wrong, you caused an avalanche. And then you take off south for the winter together. Alternatively, I do have another idea. And this would shy away from the whole like birds going south for the winter concept. Is one of you is a traveler in the mountains, stuck in a blizzard, and the other person is sort of in like a ranger fire tower type of situation. And it's their goal to guide the hiker all the way to the fire tower to safety, but still can't verbally communicate because they can't start shouting from the tower. So one person has a really good layout of what the land looks like, and the other person has no idea what's going on.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. So it's you both have different abilities?
Potentially. So that would make it asymmetrical. And pitching both versions of the game, which one to you immediately sparks like that's funner or that is more possible to create?
I like asymmetrical things more. Because the replayability of it. Mm-hmm. It's a very simple version. There's a game called, it's like an old game. It's like the Hounds and the Hare or something.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And like the hare can only move in certain ways. The hounds can only move in certain ways, but the hounds have like 3 people. It's super simple 2-player game where it's asymmetrical in that way, but like very simply asymmetrical.
Is it that old French game?
It is an old French game.
Okay. Yeah, no way to know what the name of it is, though, unfortunately.
No, I think it's called like the Hounds and the Hare or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, so then would it have and I'm making a grid right now on my other screen here for printing purposes after.
Awesome.
Would it have a board in the middle like Battleship? Like something that stops you from seeing each other?
So that's not what I'm thinking, but that does kind of make sense. My idea. So when I tried playing the older version of the game, where it was competitive trapdoors, you had the board out there in the middle, a big version of the board, and then you had a small version of the board, like a little chart that hid behind a screen. So Battleship has two boards, and I made three, but that's not necessarily more efficient. And by the way, I looked at the name of the game. It's called Hare Games.
Hair games.
Or it's also called Hare and Hounds.
Okay, yes, that's the one I've heard before.
Okay. Yeah, but that is an interesting concept that you said, because it is asymmetrical in that one person has three pieces that they can move around the board, and they also have, I believe, different movement patterns. Like, I believe the three can move one space at a time, and the hare can move two spaces at a time.
No, yeah, I think that the dogs can't move backwards.
Oh, okay, got it.
Is the main thing. Okay, so you're trying to find, what are you doing throughout the game? Is the whole point of the game is just to get onto the same block?
Yeah, so there's that, but then I was picturing that it's sort of like a whiteout blizzard. There are obstacles that you would like to avoid. One idea I was playing around with is that both of you have half of a map, basically. And this is when the communication part of it starts off. So let me just draw a little thing for it real quick. And I don't know if this would be something that would change every single time, or if it's like code names where you have like sets of cards that go together that you share. I don't know. But it would be like two halves of a map that overlap each other. So we have map A right here, if it doesn't want to blur it out, right there. And then you're going to have map B. And it'll be the same number of grid squares, obviously. And then you got map B right here. And then for some, on my map A, you got yourself a couple of pine trees that could block your way. But there's nothing like deadly about it. I got like a sinkhole over here. I'll show this in a second. And then I have like, there's a bear's cave over here that you definitely don't want to go and get stuck in. And then on my buddy's side of the map, let me see. It could be a lot of the same things. It doesn't have to be a bunch of different types of traps. But I know different things to look out for that you don't know to look out for. There's a little bit of RNG and replayability, because I know that's why you said you want it to be asymmetrical. It doesn't necessarily have to be asymmetrical to have that replayability in there.
Yeah.
But there could also be positive things in there, like we could add that fire tower concept back into there. And it would look something like this, except a lot bigger. So I have a part of a map, you have part of a map. And so I know for sure if this is my map, well, I'm not going to go up here on the left-hand side. I'm definitely not going to go over here. I'm going to go straight down the middle. But going straight down the middle is a really, really bad idea. Mm-hmm. So maybe you do have to be able to see each other. Maybe that's a type of card, a type of move that you spend AP to do. But I'm imagining this being a simple, cozy game. It doesn't have to be hyper complicated. It could be something like a 20-minute quick type of game, or it could be a really slow, methodical game. Not necessarily high strategy. It's just a longer playthrough. Has the same kind of appeal as like people doing jigsaw puzzles. It's not about the speed. It's about like the atmosphere that's created while you're playing the game. And so I need to find a way to communicate to player B, don't go straight up the middle, you're going to run into a tree.
Go straight up the middle, you're going to run into a tree. But you can't talk.
I can't talk, so I was imagining you're using cards to communicate, and it was too simple. if it turned into like a left right type of situation. But we had played a while ago. Did you play Wavelengths with us?
Yeah.
So they have a really fun way of doing like this team guessing game, like Taboo or Password.
Yeah.
But instead of like, here's a list of words you can't say, or here's stipulations about what you can't say, you're allowed to give a one-word clue to make someone guess on a spectrum of like avant-garde versus abstract. And if it was very abstract, you would choose something extremely abstract, like the concept of dreams or like the fourth dimension or something like that. But then easier example, like hot and cold. If it was something that was slightly cold, you might say something like, I don't know, like rainwater or something like that. If it was extremely hot, you would say the surface of the sun. You turn a dial and you get the idea that it's way to the right, all the way to the right. This game could have a similar concept about the spectrum. We got 4 cardinal directions that the game can take. And so if you're trying to communicate, or maybe the rule can be it's not that you can't talk, it's just that you have to really limit the amount that you talk. Oh, I just had an idea. Maybe this is interesting to you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you have an economy in the game, and the economy is clues.
So, a clueconomy.
Yes, a clueconomy. So much like code names, if you look at the board and you're like, I could easily put 4 of these words together right now with my one-word clue. It's a gamble, for sure. But if your team is on the same level as you are going to be way ahead in the game all of a sudden. So, in a kind of similar way, if I'm looking at my map and I am, for whatever reason, really confident that I could find you really quickly, I might use several of my words from my word economy to be able to communicate with you. And I go like to the left, up, dead center, something like that. Like, that's a lot of words. But if I'm wrong or you hit a trap or something like that, I've wasted so many of my words in this economy. And it might turn into the second half of the game is I'm not allowed to talk at all. Or there's some sort of penalty to compensate for that, because I don't like it in a game when I'm out and I can't participate anymore. I do like it, though, is if there's a high risk and a high reward, and the inverse of that, my risk didn't pay off, but now I have some sort of higher risk, higher reward penalty. Like in the game Fire Tower. Did you play that one with us recently as well?
No, I've never played that one.
So Fire Tower has this expansion to the game that if you get out, you start playing as the fire now. And you play as sort of like the will of the forest, and you can't win at this point unless you take out 100% of the rest of the people. And you do things like you are like, I'm going to send a bunch of firehawks over this way and light all that stuff on fire. And I'm going to redirect the direction of the wind so all the fire's blowing north now. And you get to stay in the game.
I have some ideas. So it's only 2-player, asymmetrical. I've been drawing stuff up here.
Okay.
I got my grid on Illustrator. So if there's a map in the middle, so okay, there's the blizzard. It's either you can't see each other, or you can't talk to each other, or you can't do either, or one person can do one thing and one person can do the other thing.
Oh,
if the story
I like that a lot.
Is there's 2 snowbirds. And yeah, if the story is there is 2 snowbirds, one of them is injured, and can't move, but for whatever reason, the other one can't see or something. But because of the avalanche, you can't say so many words. So one person can see the map and they're guiding the other person. Now that kind of goes into the codenames thing of I know the words, but you don't. And I guess your idea was kind of like if each of you have one half of the map, then you could both be doing that to each other. You could both be doing, like I have my half, I can see your half, you can see my half. And so we're both giving each other, so it's like code names. We're giving each other half the words though. I know half the words, you know half the words. We're both giving each other hints for those words. The only thing is if it's just directions, how do you do this with just directions? Because with code names, you say a word, but it kind of like goes with everything. It's like, cheese, there's 5 things that could be cheese. But direction, if I just say forward, you know you just go forward.
So it could be something like there are visual indicators on the board. Codenames has a bunch of words on the board. It could be...
Say your thing, I have an idea.
There's a bunch of colors on the board, a bunch of symbols on the board. I can't remember the name of the game off the top of my head, but it's some sort of a supermarket game by CMYK, and they chose to use a lot of abstract symbols that you come to an agreement to, okay, that sort of looks like a pistachio, that sort of looks like a satellite, and then you just continue to talk about it. But next, the other group that plays it agreed that actually looked like maybe a chipmunk and a motorcycle, just because they're so abstract and out there that you can agree it's many different things. So the board could potentially look like that. And, well, I think what we need to do is figure out what's the, like, genre of the game. I know we've, like, kind of danced around it for a bit, but we're talking about code names, we're talking about taboo, we're talking about Battleship, and those are two different genres that we're talking about at the moment.
Yeah, how I'm seeing it is kind of like sometimes when we've had people come over, we play like That's Not a Hat, and it's just like a warm-up game almost.
True. I like that.
And it's a cozy warm-up game where 2 birds are trying to get to each other so they can warm each other up in a blizzard. So it works perfectly.
It does work perfectly.
Because I can see me and my wife play this before playing like a bigger game. Like, we're gonna play Everdell, but like, let's just play this first. Just quick little cozy thing. Okay, here's an idea.
Okay.
You're saying that the path has some obstacles in it, and we're just doing this for the first time. Can I share my screen, and will that show up in the recording?
Yeah, I think it will.
All right. So if I share this here, let me know if that's working.
Yeah, I can see it right here.
And
I'm
I think
gonna
you
blow
can
it up
change
a
the
little
focus.
bit bigger.
Yeah, swag. Okay, so instead of it being, there is, some obstacles. You have it be where, like, obstacle here, obstacle here, obstacle here. Maybe something that speeds you up right here. Instead, you have it be like Minesweeper.
Okay.
And there's obstacles everywhere. And actually, what you're trying to do is find, I don't know where a flipping arrow is, but whatever. You're trying to find the path through the obstacles.
Okay.
To take. So it's not a few obstacles, it's the whole thing is obstacles. And you're trying to get out of the path. So you start here and you're trying to get there. Now, I don't know if you'd go back to the thing of like one person can see, one person can't. And I don't know, you have to have some type of economy to where you have, like, I guess if you just hit something, then you instantly lose. Or you do something of, I only have a certain amount of clues I can give you. before it's something. Or let's say I am a person. I am your teammate. And I say like, oh, I'm going to drop a peg right here. Then do you say, because you're the person with the map, you can see things. I drop a peg here. And you say 2. Because there's 2 things touching me that are bad.
Oh, interesting. So
or maybe I move my peg there. So there's less pieces.
Let me double check. So this peg represents your character or where you perceive an obstacle to be?
Let's say, I was going to say perceive where an obstacle to be. Let's say it is your character.
Okay.
So I go here, but if you just say, but I'm trying to think if this is even good at all. Because if you say 2, and it's like, okay, 2 of these things are bad, 2 of these things are good. Which way am I going to go? And actually,
you could only give a one-word clue, so it could have been a lot of things. So to allow there to be more opportunities for conflict, there would have to be a lot of different types of pluses and minuses, not just types of obstacles, but you could be heading the wrong direction. You could be running into an obstacle. You could be moving away from a reward. You could be...
There could be coins along the way, something like that.
Yeah, birdseed.
No, but if there is, points that can be picked up along the way.
Yeah.
Points that can be picked up along the way.
We're going to make sure, like, while we're working on this, like, the form of the game follows the function of the game, because it might end up that this isn't a birds going south for the winter thing at all by the end of it, if we find a new theme that complements it all a lot better. Because I think a good theme always helps with the intuition of the game. Battleship could have been themed entirely different, but the concept of I can't see you, you can't see me, and you're just firing things over the wall of it, mentally it makes a lot of sense that would be a battleship type of situation. So I think, who is that? Shigeru Miyamoto is one of many game designers that always says form follows function. He spent 2 months figuring out
the jump.
Mario's jump for Mario 64 and built the game around the best version of his jump.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you got going on right now?
So basically we're just trying to figure out a cozy 2-player game where the unique function of this one is that you can't talk or you can barely talk, and you're trying to go along a path.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like Codenames where, I can only give 1-word hint and we're just trying to figure out words. It's I can only give 1-word hints or some other type of indicator. And I'm trying to get through a path. So that's okay. So what I was thinking was this thing. I don't know if there's something here, some type of Minesweeper thing where I say, because if I was to put my piece here, I can put it anywhere on here. And I go like this. You would say, and let's say you do, you don't even do slanted. You just do side. So you're going to say, and let's say we decide you're only going to ever indicate bad things. So you would say 3. So I now know that this guy, and this guy are bad. So I'm like, okay, well, since all these guys are bad, I'll go here.
Okay.
And now, what would you say to indicate I am on the right path and I need to go forward? But then you would just say a number. You just say a direction. You would just say forward.
And I think, because then it's just going to turn into forward, right. And that's
unless you had to do numbers.
That's not as fun, obviously. So what I like is if you're sort of creating like a cartographer, figuring out this map, but you're blind, and you're kind of using echolocation to find it. You know what? There was another game.
Echolocation.
Not like this, but sort of. Iron Lung. Did you see any gameplay of that or play it at all?
Mm-mm.
So Iron Lung, you do have a map and you have coordinates, but what you don't have is a window looking outside of the submarine. And you are sort of just going off of this very zoomed out like overworld map, and you only open up your window. No, you don't open up your window. You have a camera on the outside and you can take a picture and go like, okay, well, that would make sense why my sonar was going off like crazy. There's a giant sea monster in front of me. And I feel like there's some concept from that we can pull, because if we're going back to the we each have part of a map type of situation, then the you can help validate why did I run into something just then. So what is the issue we're currently running into right now?
I think the issue is how do you give direction that isn't obvious?
Right.
How do you give a direction that isn't just go up, go right?
So I have an idea.
Okay.
I have in my hand a bunch of cards, and
Cards are cool.
every round, so the cards are basically useless unless we're on the same page. So that way I can't give hyper specific clues like up 1, right 3. It'll be like a picture of a sun, the number 3, the word north, stuff like that. And you're trying to figure out a way, like maybe at one point early on the game, I used sun to represent like, hey, there's a campfire nearby that you can use to warm up. Maybe that's useful for your character. And so later in the game, when I have something similar, like a match, oh, he used sun earlier to represent that there's a campfire nearby. I must be close to this right now. And now with like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, limitations are what create opportunities to be creative. And without those limitations, like turning on God mode in a game is fun for like an hour, and then you're like, well, now there's no challenge anymore. I don't care anymore.
Okay. So if instead, so bump this thing.
Okay.
Okay. If instead we both have half the map, like you said, right?
Yeah.
So do that blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. We both have half of this thing.
Okay.
We're both trying, though this would have to be like 9 and 9 or whatever. So like the goal, so that there's a center, but let's just say, I keep doing that. Let's just say there's a center that's 4 cubes. Who cares for right now? And you're both trying to get here. And your pieces are pink. And I'm going to do the thing wrong again, aren't I? Yep, I am. I start there, you start there, but obviously you would start in the center. Now, is there obstacles and points that you can pick up along the way? And if we both have cards, I have cards in my hand, and every time you're going to make a decision to move. Yeah. And if the cards are images, that's pretty interesting. I don't exactly know what the concept is for that anymore, if the cards are images.
Creating a language between the two of you from a distance. It would be this, like, you could just as easily create this
it'd be like hand signals.
Right. Well, you could just as easily create this game, theme it as your two pen pals who don't speak the same language. So you're trying to create a dialogue between each other.
You start at the same location and you are both two people that each have a foot into two separate parallel dimensions. And I can see in your parallel dimension, but only interact with mine. And you can see into mine, but only interact with yours. Therefore, I can tell you where things are in your world, and you can tell me where things are in my world, but I cannot interact with your world.
This game exists already.
Oh, what?
No, it's a great idea, and that's why someone else already came up
Trash
with it.
can. Okay, forget it. Ignore that. Okay.
No,
so,
it's a video game, and it's
I
really
don't
cool
care.
because one person sees the scary version of the world, the other person sees the cute version of the world, but I see a pitfall, and you see a coin, and you start walking towards the coin.
Okay, but then
and I'm like, there's a pitfall there.
Take something from that, though. Anyways, it doesn't have to be
Okay.
that concept, but
Yeah.
that's the same type of thing. For whatever reason, we're away from each other. Now, if we're playing this out, is my screen still being shared?
Yeah.
Okay, if we're playing this out, and there's an obstacle here, I guess you would have to block off at the exit, but I think you make this more of a rectangle than a square. And make it farther to go around. But let's say it's like this. Those are all the obstacles. Mm-hmm. And then there's a star, and these are for extra points, or whatever that I can pick up along the way.
Yeah.
There's a star. There's a star. If I place my peg here, what card would you play? Like what the cards all have images on them?
Yeah, images or vague words that might not help. But just to interject real quickly, when we play monikers, the first round is always straightforward, but might not be very efficient. And then each round we get a level deeper into inside jokes and syncing up with each other. And there was that one time where we knew by round 3 that when you do the Iron Man hand and sound effect, that means Joe Biden. And we just all got it. So I'm now picturing this game being very simple, quick rounds of maybe like 10 minutes or so.
Yes.
You trying to get as high a score as possible and try and go as many rounds as possible. Maybe there is like a way to just hard lose.
Yes.
And by round 3, we both know that when I put down that sun thing, every single time it means this because we've developed that secret language between the two of us.
Yep. Okay. To the next level. Okay, so you could do that where every time you're both able to get to the middle and meet up. So I guess it's no longer asymmetrical. Every time you're able to get to the middle and meet up, you can choose to go to the next level. You could have 2 different things of difficulty. One is you have X amount of clues that you can give before you just end. The blizzard comes in, whatever.
Okay.
Takes you out both. Or you just see how far can you go in the least amount of clues. How many levels? Like, oh, we did 3 levels. And that could just be the difficulty thing. Like there's that game with the triangle and you move the pegs, then you get rid of the peg. The little mind game that's at restaurants. So it's like, you're a genius if you did 3 levels in 4 clues. You're a primate. You're a little mole boy. If you dummy, if you did like 20 clues, you got to the end. So you could do something like that where you could have a hard loss. I'm thinking, okay, I like this idea with the symbols. This is pretty cool. So if I'm here, let's just say there's a card. One of the cards is literally just a blank card. There's nothing on it. And I like your thing. You're both developing a language of like, it's almost like hieroglyphics. It's like you're trying to, two people are trying to communicate with each other. I think there's historical precedence to this I watched a video the other day where they said a civilization took this message from another civilization that did not have a written language, so they only drew pictures. Ooh. They took it as a sign that they had a large army and were going to come and attack them. So they like surrendered and sent them all this stuff. But there was no way to prove that that's even what they meant. It could have meant that we sell arrows or we have many gifts that are coming to you. But they took it as they have a large army and they got scared. Anyways, I probably got all those facts
all
wrong.
around.
But it could be that. So you play I'm thinking maybe, I don't know if you always have access to 10 cards or something. Like we both draw randomly 10 cards. And now you have to make the language up out of that. So I randomly have 10 and I'm going to play the blank card because I'm letting you know there's nothing around you.
Ooh, yeah.
And you're going to go like, okay, I'm going to move here. And now on my next turn, I'm going to say, I'm going to play like, maybe there's something that's even like to show that it's above you. There's a card that is a fan. To show that something's
a fan is above me. So I'm like, oh, that's got to be north of me.
Okay, it's like, okay, so there's a fan above me. Like, so I'm going to keep moving this way. Now, if at any point I hit a bad obstacle,
yeah,
I get sent back to the beginning. But what I can do now is I can use my memory. So now it's kind of half a memory game. If I ever mess up, I can just use my memory and go, okay, I was here. And maybe you could just, after a death, you can move straight back to something or whatever. I don't know. Or you still have to go turn by turn.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because I shouldn't have to keep playing cards. But if it's a memory game, then I'll remember exactly where I was. So maybe you should be allowed to compensate, be allowed to move multiple spaces in a single turn. But I think it has to maybe be all in the same direction. Like, okay, this turn, I know I get to go 3 to the right.
Yes, you could do so. So it kind of reminds me of Fall Guys, the game where you just have the big checkerboard exactly like this.
Yeah.
And some of them make you fall and some of them don't. So people are trying to nudge someone forward to get them to fall. So you can go, you can just book it. Or if you ever fall and you go back to the beginning, you have to remember like, oh, I think it was like up, up, right, 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 up, left, up. And you're trying to remember that path. You could do something like that, but then I would still have to tell you at any point if you hit something. But then then when you go back to the beginning, you would have, but then does the game just become like, okay, am I good? And then and then you'd have to tell me, oh, you hit something. And then I go back to the beginning. Then on my next turn, I just go,
yeah.
I was like, oh, you hit something. And then my next turn, so then it would no longer be the clue. So I think it has to still be one move at a time. But if you were, because then that's still the punishment of you're like, I got sent back to the beginning. So now I won't be able to get Brainiac score.
Yeah.
Because I messed up once.
Right. And actually what is great, because if we do have the finite economy of cards that you have in your hand, then I could say like, no, I got this one. Don't bother spending a card.
Or, okay, if you have card economy, it gets rid of the language creation. Because that means I'm wasting a card. And now I can't use that same word again, you know? So you wouldn't be establishing language. So either you draw like 5 cards, whatever it is, and you can only use those 5 cards.
Yeah.
Or, there's a thought I had. I don't know if this makes any sense game-wise or concept-wise. When I play a card, I am now giving that card to you. We are constantly swapping cards.
Oh.
So now, because you taught me a word, you taught me how to say safe all around me. But the thing about that is, if I give you the safe all around you card, next time you're safe all around you, and if you didn't play that card back to me, I have to now use another word or symbol to mean it. I don't know if that, it seems interesting in concept. I don't know if it applies.
That's one of those things where normally when we're working on a game, I'm like, that's great, but we'll have to play test it. Because half the time we come up with an idea that sounds great on paper. In practice, and it doesn't matter how much time you spend thinking about it, you start playing and like 30 seconds in, you're like, oh wait, this doesn't work at all.
Okay, but here's the thing. The game is done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what is the card economy? Do you spend cards? How many cards do you get? Do we swap cards? But the idea of we each have a half and we have symbols and it's a language that we're trying to communicate to each other is super cool.
Yeah, and also infinite replayability, because if we have these map cards also, and each of them just have half of the map, and I could flip it around if I'm doing your side. And we could print any number of them because we haven't really discussed like what an obstacle looks like, what the good stuff looks like. I would like to keep the game simpler. You have some quote from Sakurai that you usually say about like the complexity of the game versus the immersion of the game.
Yeah, it's I forget what it is now, but it's like game essence versus approachability.
So this game we want to make ultra approachable.
I mean, yeah, and if the whole thing is just shapes and you just move, and if you hit a bad thing, you go back to the beginning, that's pretty approachable.
That's pretty flippin' approachable. Why don't you write that on the screen real quick?
It's not sorry, but...
Oh, God, no.
Consider this game... Oh, good Lord.
Oh, boy.
Consider this
Lorem
game...
Ipsum everywhere.
Approachable.
Yeah, that's approachable, baby.
Yeah, look how approachable that game is.
Yeah, I would say... So is this myth busted? We figure this out?
Yes, myth busted. Jamie Heineman. And I will be Adam Savage because you have a mustache.
I'd rather
but, okay, I think that's it. And for just simple, low fidelity, print and play materials, I can literally poop out these cards so quickly because I use the Illustrator app. This is already the size of a piece of paper. I just make my little spreadsheet. I download a bunch of icons from a website that I get free icons from.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, obviously we just start off with 20 random ones, and then you would perfect this game by adjusting the card economy, adjusting how many obstacles are in a scene, and then also by, you would have to figure out the difficulties, what the difficulties are.
Yeah, and then the last step after you would do all of that, hopefully in the future, like we were talking about with like patch notes, is the polish. And that's just to help with the immersion and the quality of life. And like I personally love a game that just, I'm a fan of minimalism. It's just like a catchy color, easy to read letter font. I mean, everything by like CMYK and whoever does like Red Flags and Cards Against Humanity. It looks clean. And then you got games on the other side of the spectrum that aren't about the approachability, like Root or...
they don't give one hoot about approachability.
Yeah, what's the other game that you play? It's not Root, but everyone always calls it Root because you're playing around a big tree. Whatever. Anyways, that game looks... Everdell. That game looks great, and you get immersed in it, and it's for entirely different types of markets.
Yeah. So if we just put this up in the top. So this will just be the low fidelity card.
Yeah, is that 3.5 by 2.5?
Indeed it is, my brother.
Nice.
So that's just that idea, and then whatever. The shape will be in the middle.
Yeah, big old
and that's
circle.
It. All black and white. There'll be a shape in the middle. Wow, that's really cool. This seems like I want to play test this thing. That seems like a cool idea. How many, I mean, just for right off the bat, just for the testing purposes, how many icons would there be?
Are there going to be repeating icons or no?
Oh, or is there repeating? Like if you drew 5 random ones.
I think you can't do that because if I get like 5 circles in a row,
that's true.
I need you to go left, right, down. So that means I think you need a small number of cards. I think, man, I'd really have to be saying it off the top of my head. And does it have to be even or odd? Does that make any sort of difference at all?
Just to start, 20.
That's what I was thinking.
We have no reason to say anything else. So if both people drew 5 cards and there's 20 total, whatever, that's just the start.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And are you thinking just symbols? Are you thinking words, numbers, anything like that?
I was thinking just symbols.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking of it like a language of people who don't have a written language and don't have a spoken language. They just have symbols.
Yeah, numbers could make things either cheap or boring.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, one like, I guess, I mean, it's going to mean whatever you want it to mean because it's your language. No, that's, well, there you go. And that's how the podcast works. Okay, well that went great. It was the first episode. We kind of had like a half concept of what that game was going to be, and that'll probably be most of them since we have like a half game of like 100 games. But I think that was cool. So I think between this episode and the next episode, I can create the low fidelity cards. I can probably create the low fidelity boards too. We have no rhyme or reason really for like where obstacles would go or how big the board should be.
Yeah.
I guess it's the whole thing would just be a card game, huh?
Yeah. No, it would
could just
be
be
a
played on
card game.
cards.
And we could, if it's more aesthetically pleasing, has more table appeal, make the map cards square and the other ones rectangular.
Well, you know what though? No, I take that back. You need a board because you need to move your pawns across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it could be a fairly small board, but what's great is like the cards, there's so many, the map cards, there's so many different variations of it. Like I've always been stoked about this concept. I've had it in the back of my head for like a year now, trying to make a cozy game for my wife and I. We like 2-player games, we like co-op games. Those are really hard to find. So I'm like, I'm going to make it. But now we actually have a playable version of this, I think, and it ties in a bunch of the games that we already like to play.
Yeah. No, I'll make a print and play version of, I mean, the grid is, I mean, you can literally just use a chessboard.
Yeah. No, true.
I think maybe you have to make the grid small because you're only going through half the board and you're already starting on the first row and the end is the last row. So that really only gives the middle row for obstacles. Unless you make it more of a path. But anyways, I can make all these low fidelity assets and then I don't know how to post them anywhere. So if you want to post them to different things.
I can put them on our Patreon. And there'll be a link to a shareable Google Drive. And that's how I've seen other people do it. And I would love to see like if there's enough interest because it does take effort to do this stuff. Both of us work. Both of us have wives and stuff like that. So if there's interest, we could convert ones that people really like into tabletop simulator playable things and start getting like communities interested in stuff. I would like to make as much of this either free or cheap from the start. And when it starts taking money out of our own pocket, like with creating these like really cool art pieces and stuff like that, because we have contact with artists and other people in the board game community, want to make sure everyone gets paid fairly. And I always prefer stuff being handmade as opposed to AI generated. I think a lot of people feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you want to create a low fidelity logo for this,
of course,
since you're a graphic designer, but yeah, I'll create all the assets, and make them print and playable. Because we have this script, we have a script that we can make accessible to others as well if they use Adobe Illustrator. We have a script that turns all the information from a spreadsheet into a playing card. And then also that one I got from online, but created a different script that takes all the cards from a folder, puts them side by side on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and exports that as a PDF. So we can do all this stuff super fast. I think what would be cool is we do low fidelity stuff. If anything catches any fire, any winds, then we make a high fidelity version of it. If it's something that's really in depth, you put it on Patreon and you have to be like a subscriber or something. Because this will take some time, but we want everything to be as free for as long as we can. But we'll see what happens. Maybe it's just all free forever and we're like Robin Hood and we give to the people.
Yeah, and we rob from Hasbro.
Also, if anybody has any ideas, I mean, we're talking to literally no viewers right now, but if anybody has any ideas of how to improve this game or any games in the future, that'll be cool. To end this, I will say that next week, the idea is I have a concept of which called Snap Peas, which is Marvel Snap, but with playing cards. But I'm wondering if there's a different theme and a slightly different rule tweak, you can make it a different game, or we just talk about how there's a few other games that we have that you can just play with playing cards. That means people don't even need to print and play. They can just play with playing cards.
No, I do like the idea of working on your Marvel Snap Peas one next week, but I got a great idea for a sign off. You let me know what you think.
Oh, I'm so stoked.
That game where we both have a word and we have to guess the word in the middle.
Oh, how interesting you would say that, Zachary, because that is a different card game that I have created where I adjusted some of the rules, and I call it Pancake Sandwich. So we are ending this podcast by playing a different game.
That's why I thought it was such a good idea.
It's not super creative to just steal that idea, but we added some theming to it. Okay, we're each going to say a word at the same time.
Yeah, and let me see. Okay, I got a word in my head.
Okay, so do I. Okay, on the count of three. Oh wait, on go or on three or on after three?
I'm going to say my word. You're going to say your word.
I like that better.
The word okay. Yeah, instead of just any word in the infinite expanse. Okay. Mine is duckling.
Mine's pretzel. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready. 1, 2, 3. Breadcrumbs. What the trash?
Oh, breadcrumbs. That makes perfect sense. Duh.
What the trash?
Well, I was thinking like what bird would have like a twisted up pretzel
I see.
type
Yeah,
of situation.
That makes sense.
So
makes sense.
Between flamingo and breadcrumbs
Good
now.
Lord. Okay. Yeah, it is. Okay.
Well, I think unless you say otherwise,
ready.
I think we only get one try, and on the episodes where we get it, then maybe we give something free to the Patreon.
There you go. We'll get something free to the viewer.
Yeah.
Yes, every episode we will try to get it in one try. Okay, I like that.
Not this time, but
not
maybe
this time, guys. Hopefully. Okay, sounds good. That's it.
All right, bye.
All right, flamingo.